Life aboard a United States nuclear submarine is unlike anything else on this planet. We're talking about a steel cylinder, 377 feet long, just 33 feet wide, where 135 sailors eat, sleep, and work for up to 90 consecutive days without once surfacing for air. There is no sunlight, no fresh air coming in, no Wi-Fi, no way to call home. And get this, there aren't even enough beds for everyone on the boat. This is a $3.5 billion machine, one of the most advanced weapon systems ever built, and the people operating it sleep in bunks barely wider than their shoulders, share 8 shower stalls between over 100 people, and eat their meals at a table that can be converted into a surgery operating surface at a moment's notice. Every single cubic foot of this submarine serves a purpose. And personal comfort? That's about the last thing on the priority list. So how do 135 human beings survive and actually function at the highest level inside a sealed steel tube for 3 months straight? Stick around, because some of what you're about to see is going to genuinely surprise you. Starting with the sleeping arrangements, which are every bit as wild as you're imagining. Sleeping quarters, the racks. Welcome to your coffin. Let's start where every submariner ends their watch shift, the sleeping quarters. In Navy language, they're called racks. And the first time you see one in person, your brain genuinely struggles to process it as a bed. Each rack is about 6 feet long, 2 feet wide, and here's the part that really gets people. You have just 18 to 22 inches of vertical clearance above your face once you're lying down. You can't sit up. You can barely turn over. Sailors call them coffins. And honestly, that's not even an exaggeration. Now here's where it gets really interesting. On a Virginia-class submarine, the Navy's newest and most advanced fast attack boat, the crew is 135 people, but there are nowhere near 135 racks. Why? Because of how the watch schedule works. The submarine operates on rotating shifts, and multiple sailors share the same physical bunk. One guy comes off watch exhausted, climbs in. 6 hours later, his bunkmate is climbing out to start his own shift. The bunk never fully cools down. This practice has a name, hot racking, or hot bunking, and it is exactly as intimate as it sounds. You're sleeping in a bed that's still warm from another person's body heat. Welcome to submarine life. Now, each rack does come with a small personal curtain, a thin fabric barrier that is the closest thing to private space that an enlisted submariner gets for the next 90 days. Behind that curtain, you have your mattress, a small reading light, and a storage compartment about 12 inches deep by 18 inches wide. That storage space is your entire world. Your uniforms, your toiletries, photos of your family, your personal tablet, any books you brought, all of it has to fit in a space smaller than an overhead bin on a budget airline. And sailors get creative. Bungee cords, mesh nets strung across the inside of the curtain. They find every possible way to squeeze out a little more storage. But there's no getting around the fundamental truth. You are living in a space smaller than most people's closets for 3 months straight, thousands of feet below the surface. Now, it's worth mentioning, officers have it somewhat better. The commanding officer, the captain, has a private stateroom of roughly 80 square feet. Sounds tiny. On a submarine, that is an extraordinary luxury. Junior officers share 2-person staterooms about the size of a walk-in closet. But even the captain's room would make a New York City studio apartment feel spacious. Every rank, every privilege, is measured in inches down here. Coming up shortly, the food situation is going to genuinely shock you. But first, let's talk about something even more immediately uncomfortable than the sleeping arrangements. Toilets, showers, and laundry. The head, do the math. Let me give you a number and let it sink in. On a Los Angeles-class submarine, 143 crew members, there are 4 toilets and 2 showers in the main enlisted bathroom area, servicing roughly 30 men per section. That's the ratio confirmed by official Navy habitability studies. And it's not just cramped. Using a submarine toilet requires a literal training procedure. The flush system uses pressurized seawater, and if you operate the valves in the wrong order, the contents come back at you. It has happened. It has a nickname among submariners that will leave to your imagination. Shower time is strictly limited to 2 minutes, not a guideline, an operational necessity. The submarine's fresh water comes from its own onboard distillation systems, which convert seawater into usable water. Those systems produce a limited amount per day, and that water is prioritized for drinking, the reactor cooling systems, and crew hygiene, in that order. So you get wet, you shut the water off, you soap up, you rinse off. Done. 2 minutes. This is called a Navy shower. Now, and this is one of those submarine facts that sounds made up, there exists something called a Hollywood shower. This is when a sailor gets permission, or finds an opportunity, to take a full, unrestricted shower of 5 to 10 minutes. No interruptions. Hot water for as long as you want. Submariners who have completed multiple 90-day deployments describe the Hollywood shower with a level of reverence that most people reserve for 5-star restaurant experiences. That's what 3 months of 2-minute showers does to your relationship with hot water. Laundry runs on a strict sign-up system. The entire crew shares 2 washing machines and 2 dryers. You get 1 allocated laundry slot every 7 to 10 days. Miss your slot? You're waiting another week. And here's a small but telling detail. You can't use regular laundry detergent on a submarine. Standard commercial detergent foams excessively in the drain systems and causes real mechanical problems. Navy-approved submarine detergent only. Even the soap is a regulation. That's the level of control that exists over every single aspect of life on this boat. Kitchen and the food. The galley. The best food in the military. Okay, here's the plot twist that nobody expects. The food on a U.S. Navy submarine is, without exaggeration, considered the finest dining in the entire United States military. We're talking about prime rib, baked lobster tails, made from scratch bread, baked fresh every single day, chocolate cake made with real chocolate, lemon cake made with freshly squeezed juice. On a submarine, hundreds of feet underwater. This is real. It's been covered by the Food Network, written about by Tom Clancy, and confirmed by every submariner you'll ever meet. Why? Because when you take 135 people and seal them inside a steel tube for 3 months with no sunlight, no fresh air, no contact with home, and no escape from the stress of the job, food becomes one of the last real anchors to normal human experience. The Navy understands this completely. As one submarine squadron food service chief put it directly, food has one of the biggest morale impacts on submarines. Lose the food quality, you lose the crew's morale. And on a nuclear submarine, morale is not optional. So the Navy spends more per person per day on submarine food than any other assignment in the fleet. And the results speak for themselves. Submariners are reportedly the only fighting force in the U.S. military where virtually every sailor gains weight during deployment, about 10 pounds on average, at sea, on a submarine. Now here's where the food story gets truly wild. Before a deployment, the boat loads approximately 15,000 pounds of food, roughly 110 pounds per sailor for the patrol. That's a staggering amount of provisions to fit into a submarine that already has 135 people and a nuclear reactor inside it. So where does it all go? Everywhere. And we mean everywhere. The passageways are lined with canned goods, stacked 1 case high, topped with cardboard to walk on. The torpedo room gets converted. Empty torpedo storage racks become overflow bunks and food storage. Under the floorboards, behind equipment panels, in every available nook in the engine room. At the very start of a deployment, sailors are quite literally walking on top of food, sleeping above food, surrounded by food on all sides. They call it eating their way to comfort. As provisions get consumed over the first few weeks, spaces slowly open up and the boat starts to feel slightly less impossibly cramped. The galley itself, The kitchen is about 8 by 10 feet. Think about that. A room the size of a garden shed, where 4 to 6 culinary specialists produce 4 full meals per day for 135 people. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and mid-rats. Midnight rations, a 4th meal served around midnight for the crew rotating through the overnight watch schedule. The chefs, called CS ratings, culinary specialists, are among the most respected people on any submarine. A great cook on a submarine is genuinely worth their weight in gold, and sailors have been known to request specific boats based on a reputation for exceptional food. There's a fresh food timeline that every submariner knows well. The first 2 to 3 weeks are the best. Fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, real salads, fresh milk, consumed at 30 to 36 gallons per day before it turns. After that, the transition begins. Powdered milk, canned vegetables, frozen proteins. The lettuce runs out. By week 6 or 7, the salad bar is a memory, and vitamin C supplements become part of the daily routine. The psychology of 90 days underwater. What happens to the human mind at 400 feet? Beyond the physical demands, there's a dimension of submarine service that the Navy has spent decades and significant research dollars studying. What sustained underwater isolation actually does to the human brain. And some of the findings are genuinely counterintuitive. The primary psychological stressors in submarine life are well documented. The complete absence of natural light disrupts circadian rhythms. The Navy actively manages this with artificial lighting systems that shift color temperature throughout the day to simulate sunrise, daylight, and sunset, giving the crew's brains at least some external time cue. The fixed, repetitive routine of watch, eat, sleep, repeat for 90 days produces what psychologists call time distortion, a sensation where weeks pass without any meaningful landmarks to differentiate one day from another. And then there's the social compression. Living in extreme close quarters with the same 134 people for 3 months with literally zero possibility of genuine solitude. There is no room on a submarine where you can be completely alone. If you need space from someone, you can go to a different section of the boat, but they are still there, 33 feet away at most. Sleep is probably the most insidious challenge. The 6 hours on, 12 hours off watch schedule fragments sleep into blocks that never fully reconstruct the deep, consolidated rest the brain needs. Over time, this accumulates. Studies have found measurable declines in reaction time, working memory, and emotional regulation after 30 days at sea in submariners, even sailors getting adequate total sleep hours, simply because of the fragmented pattern. The Navy has been actively researching modified watch schedules to address this, including an 18-hour day cycle rather than the standard 24-hour model. The nuclear heart. What actually keeps you alive down there? Everything we've talked about so far, the lights, the food refrigeration, the oxygen, the showers, the sonar, the weapon systems, all of it runs on power generated by a single piece of technology that sits behind thick lead and steel shielding at the back of the boat, the nuclear reactor. On a Virginia-class submarine, that's an S-9G reactor. On the older Los Angeles-class boats, it's the S-6G. Both are naval nuclear reactors that generate enormous amounts of thermal energy, which drives steam turbines, which turns the submarine's pump jet propulsor, which moves the boat. The exact power output figures are classified, but here's what the reactor enables, and this is the part that matters for the 135 people living inside. It runs essentially forever without refueling. The Virginia-class reactor has a fuel core designed to last the entire operational life of the submarine, approximately 33 years, without ever needing to be refueled. A boat commissioned today could operate its reactor until the late 2050s on the same core it was loaded with at the shipyard. This is why nuclear submarines can stay submerged for 90 days. It's not a battery. It's not diesel fuel. It's an effectively unlimited energy source, limited only by how much food and how many people you can carry. And that unlimited power does remarkable things for daily life on the boat. The submarine's oxygen generation system, which uses electrolysis to split seawater into hydrogen and oxygen, runs continuously off reactor-generated electricity. It literally manufactures breathable air from the ocean surrounding the hull. The CO2 scrubbers, which strip the carbon dioxide exhaled by 135 people out of the atmosphere 24 hours a day, run on the same power. 2 onboard distillation plants convert seawater into up to 8,000 gallons of fresh water per day for drinking, washing, and the reactor cooling systems. The entire life support infrastructure of the submarine, the reason 135 people can breathe, drink, eat, stay warm, and stay alive for 90 days, runs off a reactor the size of a large conference room. Becoming a submariner, the hardest job to get in the Navy. Everything we've described, the cramped racks, the 2-minute showers, the communication blackouts, the nuclear reactor humming 30 feet away, is endured voluntarily by people who went through one of the most demanding selection pipelines in the entire U.S. military. Because not every sailor who wants to serve on submarines actually gets to. The process is long, rigorous, and designed specifically to find people who can handle all of this and still do complex technical work at the highest level. It begins at Basic Enlisted Submarine School at Naval Submarine Base, New London in Groton, Connecticut, the home of the American submarine fleet since 1916. The school runs 8 weeks and covers submarine systems, emergency procedures, escape and rescue protocols, and the foundational knowledge every person on the boat needs to have before they ever go underway. Free time and recreation. Off watch. What do you actually do? Here's a question people always ask. When you're not on watch, not sleeping, not eating, what do you do on a submarine for fun? And honestly, the answer is more interesting than you'd expect. The crew's mess, the dining room, is the social hub of the entire boat. It seats about 34 people at a time, and it transforms throughout the day. Dining room at mealtimes, classroom during training sessions, movie theater in the evenings, and yes, the same tables where sailors eat their lobster dinner on Friday night become the surface for emergency medical procedures if the corpsman needs them. Multi-use is not just a design philosophy on a submarine, it's a survival strategy. Most boats have a small exercise area, roughly the size of a large closet, with a treadmill, a stationary bike, some resistance equipment. Sign-up sheets govern usage, same as everything else on the boat. But many sailors develop serious bodyweight workout routines in whatever open floor space they can find. Their racks, a hallway corner, the torpedo room. Physical fitness is strongly encouraged, partly for health, partly because it's one of the most effective mental health tools available in an environment with almost no other outlets. Entertainment comes from a ship-wide media server loaded before departure. Thousands of movies, full TV series, music libraries, audiobooks, video games. Personal laptops and tablets are allowed, with every wireless function permanently disabled. No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no exceptions. Once the boat submerges, that media library is what it is. You can rewatch the same seasons. You can start a new series. But you cannot download a single new thing for the next 3 months. Board games and playing cards circulate constantly. Books get passed around until the spines fall apart. There's a nostalgic, analog quality to off-duty life below the surface that most veterans describe with genuine fondness, even when the experience itself was genuinely hard. And speaking of things that are genuinely hard, nothing prepares you for what comes next. Communicating with families. The disconnect. Weeks of radio silence. This is the part of submarine service that doesn't get talked about enough, because it affects not just the 135 sailors on the boat, but every family they leave behind on shore. A nuclear submarine, by its very nature, must remain invisible. Radio transmissions, even receiving incoming signals, can potentially reveal a boat's position to adversary sensors. So for significant portions of any deployment, the submarine maintains complete radio silence. No phone calls, no emails, no texts. For days or weeks at a time, 135 people simply disappear from the surface world entirely. When communication is permitted, it comes in a very specific form: familygrams. Short, one-way messages, no more than 40 words, sent from family members to sailors aboard the submarine. These messages are screened by Navy personnel before transmission. They cannot contain anything operationally sensitive. And here's the part that really puts the sacrifice in perspective. If there's a serious family crisis at home, a medical emergency, a death in the family, the Navy makes a judgment call about whether and how to inform the sailor, based on whether the information would compromise their ability to perform their duties safely. The family ashore cannot just call. Outgoing communication is even more restricted. In some operational phases, sailors can send short monitored messages outbound, but personal cell phones cannot be powered on. Period. Any device capable of broadcasting a signal is a security risk, and security aboard a nuclear submarine is treated with complete seriousness. That tablet loaded with movies? The Wi-Fi chip has been administratively disabled. There is no workaround. The average communication blackout during an active patrol can stretch from several days to several weeks at a stretch. Sailors and their families adapt. Journals, video diaries recorded before departure, letters written at sea and hand-delivered at homecoming. The submarine community has built an entire support ecosystem around this reality over decades, including fleet family readiness programs, financial counseling, and official ombudsmen who serve as the communication link between the command and the families ashore. It's a sacrifice that most people on shore never fully understand. And now, before we go deeper into the reactor and the command structure, there are a few things about submarine culture specifically that are genuinely unlike any other branch of the military. The cost and the future. $3.5 billion per hull, and that's just the start. Let's talk about money, because the figures involved in maintaining the U.S. submarine force are staggering, and they're only going up. A current Virginia-class submarine, the Block 4 variant, costs approximately $3.4 to $3.5 billion per hull at contract. The Block 5 variant, which adds an 84-foot Virginia payload module, extending the submarine's length and adding 4 large-diameter payload tubes capable of carrying 7 Tomahawk cruise missiles each, 28 additional missiles per boat, costs approximately $3.4 billion per hull under the most recent congressional budget estimates. These are not sticker prices. They're fully burdened contract costs for complete operational submarines. When you add the weapon systems loaded into them, the life cycle costs over 33 years of service, and the crew training infrastructure supporting them, the total investment per hull exceeds $4 billion, every single one. To put that in perspective, the $22 billion contract awarded in December 2019 for 9 Block 5 Virginia-class submarines is roughly equivalent to the GDP of a small country, and the Navy is planning to acquire 66 Virginia-class submarines in total, spanning production through 2043. That's a multi-decade, multi-hundred billion-dollar commitment to maintaining America's undersea dominance, made necessary by the strategic environment, which is becoming more competitive, not less. The Virginia payload module specifically exists because of a looming crisis in U.S. undersea strike capacity. The 4 Ohio-class guided missile submarines, SSGNs, each carrying up to 154 Tomahawk missiles, are scheduled for retirement by 2028. Their retirement will eliminate 60% of the Navy's undersea strike capacity overnight. The VPM is the Navy's answer, adding that 84-foot section to each Block VI submarine, increasing its strike payload dramatically. The Navy has said it needs 20 VPM-equipped boats operational to compensate for the SSGN retirement. That construction program is underway now. Command, culture, and legacy. What it means to wear the dolphins. All of the technology, all of the engineering investment, all of the billions of dollars, none of it functions without the human beings who operate it. And the submarine force has developed a command culture and a professional identity that is genuinely distinctive, even within the broader context of elite military service. The commanding officer of a nuclear submarine carries a level of personal responsibility that has almost no parallel in any other military assignment. The captain commands a vessel that carries nuclear weapons, is powered by a nuclear reactor, operates in total secrecy in the world's most hazardous environment, and is home to 135 people for months at a time, with no external help available if something goes seriously wrong. The Navy selects submarine COs through an intensely competitive process. Only roughly 1 in 5 submarine officers who begin the path to command ultimately take the con of their own boat. The selection involves years of cumulative performance evaluation, formal board review, and specialized command training. There is no shortcut to that chair. The relationship between officers and enlisted on a submarine is shaped, in part, by the shared physical environment. Everyone eats in the same general area, sleeps in similar conditions, breathes the same recycled air. The close quarters create a certain transparency, a commanding officer who listens to his chief petty officers, who eats in the crew's mess occasionally, who acknowledges the expertise of his leading technical sailors. That's not a soft command style. That's an operationally effective one. The submarine community learned through hard experience that the best-run boats are the ones where information flows freely in both directions, and where the most experienced person in any given situation is empowered to speak up regardless of rank. The legacy of the submarine force is written in operations that remain classified long after the sailors who performed them have retired. During the Cold War, American submarines shadowed Soviet ballistic missile submarines across the Atlantic and Pacific, gathered intelligence on Soviet naval technology in waters they were never supposed to be in, and maintained the underwater leg of the nuclear deterrent, one of the 3 pillars, alongside land-based missiles and strategic bombers, that prevented nuclear conflict for 45 years. The declassified Operation Ivy Bells, in which U.S. submarines and the CIA tapped Soviet undersea communication cables in the Sea of Okhotsk in the early 1970s, reveals just a fraction of what these boats accomplished in that era. Today's strategic environment has, in many ways, become more demanding than the Cold War. China now operates over 60 submarines, with more under construction at a rate that has alarmed U.S. Navy planners. Russia has introduced the Yasin-class attack submarine and the Borei-class ballistic missile submarine, both capable platforms with advanced quieting technology. The undersea domain, which the U.S. Navy dominated essentially without contest for decades after the Cold War, is now genuinely contested for the first time since the 1980s. This makes every American submarine more valuable, every crew member more important, every patrol more strategically consequential. Comprehensive conclusion. We started with a simple statement. Life aboard a nuclear submarine is unlike anything else on this planet. After everything we've covered, the hot-racked bunks with 18 inches of headroom, the 2-minute showers for 143 crew members sharing a handful of stalls, the 15,000 pounds of food loaded into every corner of the boat, the complete communication blackouts that stretch for weeks, the S-9G reactor generating breathable air from seawater at 400 feet below the surface, the 12 to 18-month qualification process just to earn the right to be there, the fragmented sleep cycles and the psychological science of keeping minds sharp in isolation, and the $3.5 billion price tag on each hull. That original statement doesn't just hold up, It feels like it barely covers it. A nuclear submarine is one of the most extraordinary engineering achievements in human history. The science, the materials, the manufacturing precision, the systems integration required to build something that can sustain 135 human beings in a hostile environment where one hull failure ends everything. It genuinely represents the outer edge of what human beings know how to build. But the people inside it are something even more remarkable than the machine. The submarine force of the United States Navy comprises roughly 20,000 active-duty submariners, less than 4% of total naval personnel, who operate a fleet of submarines deployed at any given moment across every ocean on Earth. Each of those deployments is a quiet disappearance. The boat slips beneath the harbor, and the outside world doesn't know where it goes, what it does, or when it's coming back. The crew can't tell their families. They can't call home when something goes wrong. They live in coffin-sized bunks, eat their way through 15,000 pounds of provisions, count down the days to a Hollywood shower, and run the world's most advanced weapons system on 6-hour sleep cycles. They do this voluntarily. They compete for the privilege. They spend years qualifying for it. And when one deployment ends, the majority go back and do it again. The nuclear submarine is the most capable, most complex machine the United States has ever sent beneath the ocean. And the people who crew it are something the specification sheets don't capture. They are 135 individual decisions to be extraordinary, made every single day, without recognition, without audience, and without fanfare, 400 feet below the surface, in the dark, holding the line,